Someone looked at a luxury penthouse apartment, then looked at a military-grade six-wheel truck, and thought, what if those two things were the same vehicle? That is not a metaphor. That is literally what you are looking at right now. Before we go any further, full transparency as always on this channel. This is an AI-generated concept design. No factory, no production line, no showroom, pure imagination. And honestly, that is exactly what makes it worth analyzing. When there are zero real-world constraints, design becomes a conversation about what is actually possible, not just what is profitable. So here is what we are going to do today. We are going to walk the entire exterior of this concept, and trust me, the front face alone is a statement. Then we are going inside, and I am going to tell you exactly what I think is happening in that glass-enclosed upper deck, because there is a detail up there I genuinely have not seen on anything else. Then we are getting into the tech, because 6 wheels on a vehicle this size implies something very specific about the powertrain. And we are ending with a verdict where I will tell you the one thing I would change about this design if I had one call with the AI. There is also something happening at the rear of this vehicle, a design decision that I am saving for the exterior section, and I promise you it will change how you see the whole concept. Let's go. The first thing that hits you when you see this concept head-on is that it does not look like it wants permission to exist. Most luxury motorhomes, even the expensive ones, have a softness to them, a politeness. This concept has neither. The face is pure faceted geometry. Every surface break is intentional. The fenders are angular armor plating, not aerodynamic fairings, and that is a deliberate choice that communicates something specific. This vehicle is not trying to slip through the air. It is trying to dominate the road. The amber LED signature lights are traced along every edge of the front section, and this is worth pausing on, because light management on a vehicle this dark and this angular is genuinely difficult. Designers spend years trying to make black matte surfaces readable at night. What they have done here is use the lighting trim as a kind of negative space drawing. You are not seeing the vehicle. You are seeing the outline of the vehicle, like a constellation. That is sophisticated. The diamond badge at the center of the front panel is small. Deliberately small. On a vehicle screaming this loud, the logo whispering is a power move. If you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine too. Walk the side of this concept, and the first thing you notice is the proportion logic. The habitable section, the living space, rides extremely high off the ground. We are talking about a floor height that is probably 3 to 3.5 feet above the road surface. That is not an accident. That height is bought by those 6 massive all-terrain tires, and what it gives you is something genuinely rare in motorhome design. A commanding view from inside that does not require roof-mounted windows. The glass-to-body ratio on this concept is extraordinary for the category. Normally, when you see a vehicle this angular and this armored in its design language, the windows shrink. The designer here went the opposite direction. The upper section, what I'm calling the observation deck, is almost entirely glass. You are living inside a fishbowl, but a fishbowl that is 12 feet in the air. That changes everything about the experience. The side body panels use a two-tone split, black matte on the lower third, moving into a brushed gunmetal silver on the main body. Light behaves completely differently across these two finishes. The matte absorbs. The brushed silver reflects. So as the sun moves, this vehicle is literally changing its visual weight. In the morning it looks heavy and grounded. In direct mid-daylight, it almost disappears into the sky. The 6-wheel stance deserves its own sentence. 6 wheels, 3 axles, is not a styling choice. It is an engineering statement. You only do 6 wheels when you are serious about load distribution, about off-road capability, or about carrying a weight that 2 axles cannot handle safely. Given the size of that upper glass deck, I suspect all 3 are true here. I promised you the rear detail. Here it is. The concept features what appears to be an external terrace at the rear of the upper deck. You can see it clearly. There is a railing system, what looks like a lower step structure, and a section of decking that extends beyond the main body envelope. This is not a storage bay. This is an outdoor living platform on a motorhome. Now, I want to be very clear that we are in concept territory here. In a real engineering scenario, a cantilevered exterior deck on a moving vehicle raises about 17 structural and regulatory questions immediately. But as a design intent, as a statement about what luxury mobility could feel like, it is one of the most resolved ideas I have seen in this category. The concept is saying your outdoor space travels with you. You are not parking near nature. You are bringing your terrace to nature. The golden LED accent lighting that traces the entire vehicle perimeter unifies the exterior at night. In daylight, this reads as a working vehicle. After dark, it reads as an architectural installation that happens to have 6 wheels. That contrast is doing real work for the concept's positioning. All right, we have walked the outside. But everything I just described, every proportion, every glass panel, every design choice, exists to serve what is happening on the inside. And from the exterior, we have already seen enough to make some very educated guesses about what that interior looks like. Let's go in. We do not have interior renders for this concept, which, honestly, makes this section more interesting, not less. What we are going to do is use the exterior as evidence and deduce what is almost certainly happening on the inside. This is design detective work. Let's go zone by zone. Using those 6 wheels as a scale reference, the tires appear to be somewhere in the range of 37 to 40 inches in diameter. We can estimate that the floor of the upper living deck sits roughly 3 feet above ground level. And from the exterior glass panels, the interior ceiling height looks like it clears 7 feet easily, possibly more. That is stand up straight, walk around in socks. Forget you are in a vehicle ceiling height. That is the number one thing people sacrifice in motorhome design, and this concept refuses to sacrifice it. Imagine standing inside that upper deck. Glass on 3 sides. 7 feet of clearance above you. The world outside sitting 12 feet below your eye line. That is not the interior of a vehicle. That is the interior of a penthouse that happens to be moving at highway speed. Based on the habitable length, which I'm estimating at approximately 30 to 35 feet, the zone layout almost certainly runs as follows from front to rear: cockpit, then lounge and dining, then kitchen, then sleeping, then bathroom. This is the most logical flow for a vehicle of this size because it mirrors how people actually live. You arrive somewhere, you sit. You sit, you eat. You eat, you sleep. The zones follow human behavior, not the other way around. The cockpit is separated from the living area by what I suspect is a glass partition, maybe a sliding panel. You want visual connection to the road from the lounge, but you do not want to feel like you are sitting in a bus. The partition gives you both separation and transparency. The lounge is where this concept earns its positioning. From the exterior glass panels on the upper deck, you can see large sectional seating, low profile, architectural. Not the padded booth aesthetic of traditional luxury coaches. This reads more like a design hotel lobby that someone folded into a vehicle. The view angles from that seating position would be extraordinary. You are sitting elevated, surrounded by glass, watching the landscape scroll past you. There is no static image I can give you that captures what that sensation feels like, but I want you to try to imagine it. You pull into a mountain valley at dusk. You are sitting on a low sofa. Outside your window, which starts at shin height and goes to the ceiling, there is nothing but mountain. That is what this concept is selling. The kitchen on a vehicle positioned at this level almost certainly integrates induction cooking, not gas. Induction makes sense here because it is faster, safer in a sealed environment, and it does not require the gas plumbing that adds weight and complexity. Surface area will be compact but well considered, maybe 6 linear feet of counter, with full-depth appliances integrated flush into the cabinetry. You would not see the fridge until you opened a panel. Storage philosophy in a kitchen this size is almost always vertical. Ceiling height cabinetry, hidden behind panel doors that match the wall finish. Nothing visible. Nothing loose. Because at 70 miles per hour, everything that is not fixed becomes a projectile. The sleeping zone sits in the rear third of the habitable space, which on a vehicle with a rear terrace concept creates one of the most interesting design challenges I can think of. How do you give the bedroom privacy from the terrace while still giving it access to it? My guess? A sliding glass wall. Closed, the bedroom is completely private, acoustically separated from the outdoor platform. Open, you have a bedroom that flows directly onto an external terrace. That is not a feature. That is an experience. Waking up in a bed that opens onto a mountain terrace is the kind of detail you cannot put a price on, except conceptually you just did. A vehicle at this conceptual positioning almost certainly imagines full climate automation, predictive HVAC that reads outside temperature and adjusts interior conditions before you notice a change. Connectivity would be satellite-based, not dependent on cellular towers, because the whole premise of a vehicle like this is going places where towers do not exist. Lighting would be scene-based, morning light, working light, evening light, all controlled from a single panel or by voice. These are not speculative features. They exist today in various forms across aviation and superyacht design. The concept is simply asking, why not on land? The interior of this concept is not trying to be a motorhome that is almost as good as a house. It is trying to be a house that is also a motorhome. That is a completely different design brief, and it shows in every decision we can read from the exterior. Now, let's talk about what is actually powering all of this, because 6 wheels implies something very specific. If this concept were ever engineered for reality, and I want to be clear, that is a big if, the powertrain logic almost writes itself. 6 wheels means 3 axles. 3 axles on a vehicle this heavy means you are not running a single internal combustion engine through a traditional drivetrain. The engineering math doesn't work cleanly. What does work, and what every serious heavy EV program is moving toward, is hub motors. Individual electric motors at each driven wheel, managed by a central torque distribution system. That gives you the power delivery, the traction control granularity, and the packaging efficiency that this concept would need. Battery capacity on a platform this size? You would be looking at somewhere in the 400 to 600 kilowatt-hour range, comparable to what long-haul electric truck programs are currently engineering. That is not a number that exists in any passenger vehicle today. But in the heavy coach category, programs in Europe and North America are already testing in that range. The technology is not fiction. The application to a luxury motorhome is. The solar roof, which you can see hinted at in the glass upper deck, would not be a primary power source at this scale. Physics simply does not allow it. What solar does in a vehicle like this is different. It runs interior systems when the main battery is in storage mode. Climate, lighting, connectivity. You can stay parked in a remote location for days without plugging in, as long as you are not also trying to drive 200 miles. That is a genuine off-grid capability that changes the use case entirely. Autonomous highway mode is the feature I find most plausible here, not because the technology is fully mature, but because the use case makes sense. On a 600-mile motorway journey, the ability to hand control to the vehicle while you sit in that lounge, eating dinner, watching the landscape through the glass walls, that is the promise of autonomous driving actually realized. Not commuting. Not city navigation. Long-haul luxury transit where the journey is as valuable as the destination. The tech stack this concept imagines is ambitious. But none of it is impossible. All of it exists in adjacent industries. Aviation, maritime, heavy commercial transport. The question this concept is really asking is, why hasn't anyone assembled it this way before? I have thoughts on that. Let's get to the verdict. What it does genuinely well. The glass-to-body ratio on the upper deck is the single best design decision in this entire concept. Most motorhomes, even expensive ones, treat windows as a concession, an apology for the fact that you are inside a box. This concept treats glass as the primary material. The vehicle is built around the view, not the other way around. That is a philosophical shift, and it is executed with conviction. What seems impractical? The exterior terrace. I love the idea. I genuinely do. But in a real engineering scenario, a cantilevered outdoor platform on a vehicle moving at highway speed creates structural stress points that would require significant engineering solutions, and those solutions add weight. On a vehicle that is already carrying 3 axles and a 500+ kilowatt-hour battery, every kilogram matters. I think the concept is right about the desire. People want outdoor living when they travel. I think it is optimistic about the execution. In a production version of something like this, I would expect the terrace to be retractable rather than fixed. Most impressive detail. The amber LED perimeter lighting. It sounds like a styling flourish. It is actually a spatial communication system. At night, it tells you everything about the shape, scale, and proportions of this vehicle from 200 meters away. On a dark road, in a remote location, this vehicle announces itself before you can see any other detail. That is safety engineering dressed up as luxury design. Those two things should always be the same thing. The one thing I would change: the wheel arch coverage. Those 6 tires are the most aggressive, capable-looking feature on this vehicle, and the arches almost disappear them. I would bring the wheel arch geometry forward. Make it more pronounced. Let those tires breathe visually. Right now, the lower third of this vehicle is slightly apologetic in a way the upper 2/3 are not. The stance deserves to be celebrated, not hidden. What it signals. This concept is not really about motorhomes. It is about a generation of people who refuse to choose between comfort and freedom. The traditional luxury market says, you want comfort, you stay in a hotel. The traditional adventure market says, you want freedom, you accept discomfort. This concept says, false choice. Reject the premise. Take both. That is an idea worth $10 million if someone ever builds it, or worth exactly nothing if they don't. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI-generated. And it is still one of the most resolved motorhome concepts I have analyzed on this channel. If you could only choose one, the exterior terrace or the full glass upper deck, which one stays and which one gets cut? Drop your answer below. If you come to YouTube to see design analyzed seriously, not just photographed and praised, but actually broken down for what works and what doesn't, then subscribing to this channel is the most efficient way to not miss the next one. We publish one concept per week. That's it. No filler.